Hello. Since I am leveling a new account on the Russian server, I decided that I might as well restart an old series that I did in the past that a lot of people really enjoyed. And that is of course the low tier guides. Considering the ships I'm playing on this server will be mostly German battleships and Russian DDs. Those were the two that were voted by my viewers when I asked which two lines should I play, and they voted for these two. So I will be focusing mostly on these two lines in this series of lower tier guides. First off, of course, we have the Nassau. The Nassau I consider probably the strongest tier 3 battleship in the game, without any rival. This thing has a beastly armament, 22-second reload, more than enough penetration to deal plenty of damage to anyone you face. You can overmatch bows, angles. No one has any armor at this tier anyway, so you can kind of crush your opponents with this thing. Of course though, like all low-tier battleships, it suffers from some of the major drawbacks that all low-tier battleships have. That is of course, well, you can see it here, absolutely abysmal dispersion, and of course the absolutely abysmal speed. These are very common things for low tier battleships, and it's actually a fairly good thing that it suffers from these things, or well, low tier battleships in general, because it forces you to put so much more thought into your positioning if you want to succeed in these. A lot of people tend to skip past these super quick, like I don't want to play them, I just want to go to the higher tier where the ships are fast and fun and all this. But they kind of miss out on a pretty important lesson that the low tier battleships teach you, and that is the importance of your own positioning. Because you're so limited on range and so limited on speed, where your ship is located is what, one, makes you able to deal damage to other ships. You don't have the range to do it from afar. You can't just sit back like you can do in higher tier battleships and just snipe across the map. No, you have to actively position yourself in places where you can actually deal damage. For example, I'm moving around this island. And second of all, because you're so slow, you have to make sure that you are in positions where you can disengage, you're not overextended, and so forth. Now, let's look at my position at the start. The only one who could actually shoot me at the start was the Bogatyr. I put the island on my left here, I put that between me and every other opponent, so the only one who was fighting me was the enemy Bogatyr. Now, since my ship was already turned like this, but I want to fight this Chikuma, I'm actually reversing around. Now normal this would be like, what the hell are you doing? But the ship is already so slow, the ship does 20 knots, and when I'm reversing I do 9.6, which is half my speed. So even though it looks ridiculous, it seems ridiculous, it's actually not the end of the world moving out around the corner like this, because once again, the only one who can actually shoot at me is the Chikuma. I'm isolating my opponents one at a time. Now, the secondaries are actually surprisingly strong on the Nassau. This doesn't apply to all other battleships at this tier, but the Nassau has very good secondaries. And of course, they are not very accurate, just like all this. There's a lot of RNG involved. Now, one of the things you have to fear in lower tier battleships, especially something like the Nassau, is being rushed by a DD. DD rushes are insanely strong at low tiers. When you get higher up, you get so much speed, you have so much firepower, better accuracy, better secondaries, that if a DD tries to do the same things, unless they have a perfect opportunity for it, they will probably get shredded by the battleship. But at low tiers, you can honestly pull off this absolutely ridiculous sail across the open map right into the battleship and torp him and kill him. And that's because, of course, the battleships are so slow and the dispersion is so bad that if RNG favors you even a bit, you can get away with it. So that, of course, means that you have to pay a special attention to DDs in lower tiers. Once again, this is a very good lesson to learn. You should also be shooting DDs when you can, or when you're close enough that you can deal damage to them, something which battleships tend to neglect, even at higher tiers. But once again, it teaches you important lessons about positioning and angling. Which way is your nose pointed? If your nose is pointed towards the DD, can he turn into you and rush you? Do you have an escape path ready? Like, all these things are actually quite important, but people tend to skip over them because they go, it's lower tier, the ship is going to change, but they don't realize that many of the lessons that these low tiers teach you are really important for improving at the game and for moving on in the future and basically raising your win rate in higher tiers. So learning these things all realizing these things that you need to learn at low tiers makes it easier to learn them as you move up the tiers, and makes you a better player on the way. So always keep an eye on the minimap. That's of course, you notice my minimap is pretty damn massive. That's of course, I maximize it every time. It doesn't matter which account I'm playing on, NAE, Russia, what ship I'm playing. Always have maximum size minimap. It gives you so much more information. And information is a tool that you should be using. It's insanely helpful. It lets me know exactly. For example, now I know the Dursky is fighting the Chikuma on my left. I know there's a Kolberg in front of me, but I'm in a smoke, so he can't really touch me. And I'm fighting this Nassau here. The enemy Tenryu is also playing extremely safe, which puts him pretty far out of position. Now, my Chikuma made the decision of rushing a Dursky. A Dursky is, of course, a torpedo boat to the extreme. It has very few guns, but it's got, like, it can shoot 12 torps at once. It's a ridiculous torp spamming monster, and it's the very last thing you want to get close to. So, well, luckily he decided not to rush me. I was already reversing out of the smoke there just to get information of the position of this Dursky. Now, what I'm doing right now, even though it doesn't look like it looks like I'm just shooting this Nassau. Notice that I aim a bit higher because I want to damage his guns, since I know his hull will probably bounce it. You notice the glances I take at the Dursky all the time, even though I'm also constantly staring at him on the minimap. That's to make sure he keeps his position. I don't want him to rush me while I'm fighting this guy. Once again, glancing at him all the time, because you have to keep an eye out on DDs. They are the biggest threat for a battleship, especially at this tier. They can just demolish you so quickly. So constantly keep an eye out, make sure he's not rushing you. I'm gonna shoot my back guns at him, just because not only do I want to reset the cap, but I want to see if I can deal some damage to make life easier later on. This Nassau is rushing me. The Nassau is shooting HE, something I do not recommend for battleships. You see it a lot in low tier battleships. They shoot HE over and over again, but it doesn't have enough penetrative power. He's shooting it at my hull, not my superstructure, so it doesn't really deal too much damage. You might get some fires, but that's not really a big deal. I managed to unlock my high caliber. You notice I'm angling away from him, and I'm also sailing away from the Dursky because I don't really feel comfortable being that close to the Dursky. Also, I put this island between me and the Tenryu, so once again, it's only really the Kolberg that's shooting me and this Nassau. The Dursky pops up now, so I'm just gonna keep sailing away from him. I started a second fire on the Nassau. Keep a track of your secondaries. If you didn't notice it, I started a fire on the Nassau earlier. He repaired the first fire, something I never recommend. I have 2 fires now, which I need to repair. But I started 1 fire and he repaired it, and then my secondary started 2 fires. That's why I turned my guns away and stopped even aiming at him, because I knew my fires would kill him, would burn him to death. So try to keep track of that when you see those fire icons pop up. Have they repaired, have they not? Because sometimes you might waste a lot of firepower, a lot of time, a lot of reloads, which are pretty precious in situations like these, on a ship that would already have died anyway. Now, my buddy down there died, so I'm actually left in a 1 versus 3 against 2 cruisers and a DD. Now, I want to do as much damage to this Kolberg as possible before he disappears around this island, but I don't really want to rush around this island because the Dursky was last seen going in there. Also keep in mind that our base is being capped, which tells me of course the Tenryu is in the cap. Keep in mind, once again, this is why we have the minimap open. So even though I can't see any of them, I know exactly where all 3 of them are. The Tenryu is sailing on my right. He might be coming around this island on the right, or he might be going below me, flanking. We'll see. And I know both the Dursky and Kolberg are behind the island. So the Dursky does what I've feared for a long time now, and he rushes me. But I have done some damage to him earlier with the shells I shot earlier, so he isn't full HP. In fact, he's fairly weakened. I turned in towards him. This is the easiest way to deal with DDs rushing you, unless you can sail away. Sailing away is the best, but if you don't have the option to sail away from him, you like I had here, rushing right at him is a good option as well. Mostly because when you're this close, your guns are pretty much guaranteed to hit, regardless of dispersion. And if it does torp you, you turning into the torps makes you a slimmer target and makes it easier to torpedo beat, to dodge them in general. Tenryu pops up below me, which was one of the options. I'm actually happy about this. If he had popped up on my right, it could have been significantly harder to dodge the torps. Now I'm in the optimal position to dodge the Tenryu torps though, which I know are coming. You see, I'm sailing away from torps. This is the easiest way to dodge them. If you're already sailing away, you just keep sailing away. It gives you advanced warning time and advanced time to react because you're already moving in the same direction as the torpedoes, so it takes them longer to catch up to you. So as soon as I saw him on the minimap, I kept sailing away, and I managed to keep my distance between me and the incoming torpedoes. So now, well, I could repair this one fire. I want to see if this Tenryu is shooting AP, which is good for me, and he's slipping behind the island. So with this in mind, I do blow my repair on a single fire. Note that I usually highly recommend against this, but it's mostly because I see that this Tenryu is going behind rock and he's shooting AP that I decide to take the risk. Because I am so low HP, I only have 5k HP left, and I don't want to lose an unnecessary amount of HP to that fire taking down. This Tenryu, he is reversing, which actually makes him surprisingly hard to hit. Once again, you saw with the start with the Bogatyr, an angled ship. To hit that with this dispersion is extremely rough. At long range, trying to do any sort of sniping in battleships at low tier is a horrid idea, and generally it's a horrid idea at higher tiers as well, but the game gets more forgiving at higher tiers and lets you get away with more sniping. But what this low tier tries to teach you is that you should get a bit more close, especially in German battleships, which are the brawling battleship line. I do land one penetration, no citadel sadly. There's a risk that he used his torpedoes there, because we have to keep track that he shot his right side torpedoes as he came sailing around. And I can't remember, does Tenryu have built-in or does it have on-top torps? I think it might have had on-top torps, so we should be safe. However, I still move around because this is the path he most likely took, and also sailing this way forces him into action. Now, the Tenryu could go to the left or to the right, but if he does choose to go to the left of the island, I will push into his cap. And he will be forced to deal with me because I am capturing his base. So choosing this side that I chose forces him into action. And he is still giving me broadside. I keep in mind that in my torp, you see I'm turning sharply in. There's a high risk that he might have torped already if they came off cooldown. So I turn sharply in to make sure. All I need at this point is just one citadel to kill him, and I finally get the citadel I was asking for, which it was only a matter of time considering how much broadside he gave. So I didn't get what's it called, lone warrior or whatever it's called, solo warrior. Yeah, I didn't get that because sadly my buddy died after I killed one of them. So it wasn't the 1 versus 4, but it was a 1 versus 3. Still, it does show you just how much power you have as a battleship in low tiers. A lot of people tend to claim that battleships are very weak at low tiers, and that's of course utter and complete bullshit. It's just that the players themselves are rather weak and they don't really know how to play the low tier battleships. They are very strong if played correctly, especially the Nassau. Kabachi and South Carolina are significantly weaker. I make no attempt to even try to excuse that. The Nassau is by far the strongest tier 3 battleship, but all of them have very high carry potential. It just comes down to your own positioning more than pretty much anything else. Managed to secure the Kraken. Looking at the team score, well, always nice to get a bunch of achievements and get the win. Of course, I'm playing Potato. This is on the Russian server, and I'm a beautiful, bright, sparkly pink. Enjoyable color. Looking at the damage, well, not really too much special here. You might notice that I tanked 46,000 HP, which is what my ship has, 35k HP, so that's also always amusing. Anyway, that was my short Nassau commentary. I'll give you a brief look at the build I suggest you start working on if you are just now starting the German battleship line. Right, starting off, I already have the König unlocked, so let's jump back to the Nassau. Now you might notice I didn't even get the range upgrade. You don't need the range upgrade, you can't hit anything at any range regardless at low tiers. I get the hull upgrade followed by the speed upgrade and then move on straight to the Kaiser. Consumable wise, I do recommend you at least get the premium repair. The heal isn't that important, but the premium repair will prevent unnecessary deaths to a bunch of fire or flooding, considering all the HE spam and all the torps at low tier. So that's highly recommended. Captain perks wise, you want preventive maintenance, followed by expert marksman. Turret traverse is very slow at low tiers. Superintendent, very safe choice, followed by Manual Fire Control for AA, aka Manual AA. This one is fantastic against carriers, and it will kick in heavily already at the Bayern. At the Bayern, you can see, let's get this hull so I can show you. You got these big 105mm guns that deal 100 DPS, and this gets doubled with Manual AA, and this keeps working on the Gneisenau, and it keeps working on Bismarck, and so forth and so forth. So it's a fantastic investment into the future to go straight for that. After that, you can choose different directions. You can go for the tank build I use on my Grosse Korps, for secondary build I use on my Bismarck. There are plenty of options, but this was more of a nod in the right direction to choose. Anyway, that was my brief Nassau commentary. I hope you enjoyed it.